topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Ascending, where we believe in a better life through better business. Here, we help you aspire to greatness, achieve your goals, and ascend to new heights. Whether you're starting, scaling, or exiting, we're here to empower you with inspiring stories, enlightening discussions, and transformative resources to help you accelerate your success. Now, it's time for Entrepreneurs Ascending. Welcome to Entrepreneurs Ascending. We're so glad to have you here with us, whether or not it's live or you're watching this at a later time on YouTube or Facebook or all the different places that it is, or just through the podcast, Spotify or Apple, any of those great places. We are honored that you're giving us your attention. Some say that that attention is really the most valuable resource, especially nowadays. And so I've got something, I think, or someone, I should say, that is going to absolutely hold your attention. If you're trying to grow your business at all, or maybe even if you're trying to grow your professional presence and make yourself more attractive to potential companies and that you might be going out to apply to. There we go. So if you're going out for a new job, and that is Kathy Bernard. She is a LinkedIn expert, and I've had the pleasure of hearing her speak before, and I was really blown away with a lot of knowledge and structure and systems in terms of making sure that you score high, your profile and your business's profile scores high on LinkedIn. So we're going to go ahead and have Kathy come on in with us. Kathy.
Hey, how you doing, Matt? Thanks, and welcome everybody. Glad to be here.
Great, Kathy. Thank you so much for being here. We're excited to hear you talk because I know everybody's trying to figure out how do I grow my business and trying to do it in cost-effective ways. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand the power of LinkedIn. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, definitely. I would say probably about 95% of the people and companies I work with kind of just have your basic LinkedIn and don't really know what it can do for them, whether they're a job seeker or whether they're a business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that there's some things, from your talk that I heard a few weeks ago that I still need to jump into action with and probably need to sit down and talk in deeper depth because, oh my gosh, the amount of things that I just wasn't taking advantage of with LinkedIn was just mind blowing. So we got to
whether you have a free account or a premium account, there's a ton you can do on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, before we get into that, I'd like everybody to know a little bit more about you and your entrepreneurial journey. So we just where did it start for you? When did you first get that entrepreneurial bug?
Okay, well, it was a few years ago in that I worked at a company where pretty much all of us despised working there, and they offered a voluntary separation, and about a fifth of the company took it, and I took it, and I was going through where we could go to one of those companies that would help us get the next job, except it was all really cookie cutter, and it was like the person walked out of the room, and I'm like, man, this is terrible. I'm like, I sent around my notepad and I said, everybody put your name and number down. I will help you figure out how to get a job. And I helped them with their LinkedIn and everything. And from that, I took another job. But from that, I started meeting people at a lunch at the Culver's that was 2 doors down from my company. And so for a butter burger with cheese snack pack, I taught over 350 people how to do LinkedIn and how to do their resume and everything. And that's kind of how it all started.
Wow. The amount of value that they got for just a Culver's cheeseburger and a snack pack. But they had to buy the snack pack. Right. Man, that's a fantastic deal. Oh my gosh.
I don't do that anymore. But that gave me the groundwork to understand the common needs.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm glad that you value your knowledge a little bit more these days. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're just by helping people, you just realized that there was a big need for this out there. I guess. Right? Would that be fair to say?
Well, yeah, and what I found is that a lot of people, they may be the best at what they're doing, but unless they know how to share that they're the best, whether that's on LinkedIn or other mechanisms, they aren't scoring high for that. And we'll talk a little bit about what I mean by score high. But unless you're telling people who you are, they don't know. And so that's what you got to do. You got to shout it out in a way they can hear you.
Yeah, there's kind of that internal versus external reality where it's like you might know how awesome you are, but if you can't communicate that out there to your target market in a
Yeah.
way that resonates with them and that they can actually see and hear because it's in front of where they are at, then
Right. And somebody said, well, my work speaks for myself. And I'm like, it doesn't say a thing if nobody's seen your work. So,
right.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a great point. That's a great point. So what does scoring high on LinkedIn mean?
Okay. And so it's a little bit complicated in that if you have a premium account with LinkedIn, you can see how you score for jobs. Now, I know a lot of the people on your call, they're business people. They're not looking for a job. But what I realized is if you look up on the jobs to see how you're scoring as, say, a business consultant or a business analyst or whatever they are, an entrepreneur, you can actually see how you score if you were going to apply for a job. And it's based on
Mhm.
your skills, your experience, your current experience. And if you don't maximize all those things, you don't score in the top 50%, 25%, or 10% for those jobs. And when I realized that, I'm like, everybody's doing this wrong. You've got to score for what you want to be found for.
Okay. So
Okay.
scoring high. So there is like some sort of scoring system with LinkedIn with those professional accounts.
Yes, and it can be the career account, which is about $39.99 a month, up to like Sales Navigator or Recruiter Premium. All of those will allow you to see how you score for what you do.
Okay. So
Yeah.
being able to get one of those accounts, you can start seeing how well you score. So
Yeah.
what goes into those scores?
Yeah, so it's your skills. So you can list up to 50 skills in your skills section of LinkedIn. Um, and you could put underwater, maybe you're good at underwater basket weaving, but if that's not the skill they're looking for, you got to figure out what the exact right skill is. So one of the things that I did is I would just check for, say, a business analyst. I would check about 50 different jobs and say, now what skills are always wanted for business analysts? And it's always going to be like leadership, management, business analysis, but it could be things like customer service and project management that you may not think to put down. And then it's
Mm,
also your current experience. So a lot of people, they don't have a current experience because they're just starting their company and they didn't put it down. But you put in a current experience with the right job titles, that'll help you score. And then your past experience. Did you do that same type of work at your last job and the last job and the last job? And are you calling it the same thing? All those things kind of combine together to help you score high for what you do.
Okay. So a lot of it is about representing the specific skills that relate to what you want to be found about or
Yeah,
on or what
exactly.
you
Yeah,
how
for.
you want
Yeah.
to yeah,
Yeah,
for.
what you want
There
to
we go.
be
Found
for.
for. Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
So if you think about it, and that they use the search box, people may type in business coach or something. They may type that in, and they may say business coach, comma St. Louis. And for you, example, Matt, you want to show up as the top in LinkedIn for business coaching. But here's the really good thing: is when you maximize all this on LinkedIn, you start showing up on Google for what you do. And I know that because if anybody was to look up LinkedIn expert, comma St. Louis, I always show up first, and LinkedIn trainer, comma St. Louis, I always show up first on Google, and it's because I learned to maximize my LinkedIn profile.
Oh, that's amazing.
I don't
That's
spend any
amazing.
money on Google or on LinkedIn, to tell you the truth.
Wow. So you're saying actually, so when somebody does a Google search,
Yeah,
because your LinkedIn profile is so
optimize.
on
Yeah,
point, on fleek, whatever the kids say,
yeah,
it shows up in Google for
In
you.
Google for what you want to
Wow.
do. And it
You
takes
rank
a
on Google.
couple of weeks until it recognizes you. But when I realized that, I thought everybody's doing this wrong. And if you
Wow.
tweak it, you can do it right. So that's
That's
what I do
incredible.
with my clients. Yeah.
That is incredible. So, yeah, tell me, before we get too much into all the little like tools and all those little, tell me a little bit more about like a couple success stories where like it somebody was really really struggling, and maybe just a couple of things that they did, and what impact that ended up having on them.
Well, I'll give you an example. I had one client in Phoenix, and so I worked with him on his profile, and we followed over 400 companies. He was a healthcare communicator, and so we went into LinkedIn and followed 400 different companies that were healthcare oriented in Phoenix. He got a call the next day from one of the largest hospitals in Phoenix and said, "Hey, John, we see that you're a healthcare communications expert. Would you like to come in and interview?" And he's like, "Oh my goodness, this thing works." And then I had another client, a business client. She has specific skills working with the government and with military things, and she wanted to do business coaching in that area. And so we were on a call together, and I said, "Okay, now let's go find that company, the coaching, online coaching thing that you want to do things with. Okay, now let's send a message to that person. Okay, let's find the right person." And we sent it to two people. Before our training session was over, she got both of them responded and said, "We want to talk to you. Can you meet with us this week?" And she's now doing work with that coaching company because she had some very specific knowledge and education that she could share with them, and they were desperately looking for her. It doesn't always work that way if they're not as desperate for what you have, but in her case, it was. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So, what about like, for like a small business owner or medium sized business owner, or even a salesperson? Like,
Hmm.
does it work for them as well?
It definitely does. And so some things that people don't think about on LinkedIn, they think that they have to be really good at social media and all this. They really don't. They need to be able to establish their brand, and you can have a free company page on LinkedIn with your logo and that. So you can establish your brand on that. You have to fix up your profile and the profile of your employees so that they find, because they usually if people are searching, they find people first and then they find your company. So you put all those things together. And one of the things I always say is to follow your prospects and follow your customers on LinkedIn. And when you do that, you see their articles and that, and you respond on the homepage, and they start to think of you as in their orbit. And it's like, oh, they must already be doing business with us. So I'm going to give them my department's business as well. So it really works to do that.
Wow. Okay.
So
Okay. So oftentimes people are finding people first anyway via
exactly.
LinkedIn.
That's how
And
LinkedIn typically works. You find the person, then they find the company.
okay.
Okay.
So do you have to do a whole lot of posting and a whole lot of activity like that for it to start to be effective for you, or?
Well, I do about 80/20 on the 80% of the time I respond to my clients' posts on LinkedIn or my prospects' posts on LinkedIn and say, "Great job. Congratulations on the new office. Great new hire," and blah, blah, blah. I respond to what they post. And I'll tell you, when you do that, they automatically adopt you and they start responding to your posts. So if you spend 80% of the time spending 5 minutes a day just going through and liking and commenting on what your clients are doing and your prospects, that is worth its weight in gold. And then you can occasionally post, but make it interesting and don't be always trying to sell stuff. Share other little things on your post, maybe like stories about your business and maybe about new hires and different things like that, things that are interesting to people.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So you're saying like following others, and then following others who are, I guess, kind of that target market, the
Right.
people that you're going after. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, not just following the people, but following the company. So you can go to the
companies.
companies.
Okay.
And that's one thing too that people don't realize is you can do an advanced search on LinkedIn, follow all the companies that would be good prospect companies for you. Then you can drill down and find the right person at the right company to contact through LinkedIn, whether you have a
Okay.
free account or a premium one.
Okay. So
Yeah.
So you find the target market companies that you're going after. Now,
Right.
what if you're like B2C? Like,
Okay. Yeah, so it is a little trickier with B2C, but if you think about it, we are all consumers, whether we are have a B2B business or what. But so you can follow people, and one of the things that works really well is you can join groups on LinkedIn. You can join up to 100 different topical or regional groups. So, for example, Matt, you may want to join this. There's one called Linked Working St. Louis. You might want to join that group because it's got 30,000 St. Louisans that are in that group. Or you may want to join, business B2B groups or something like that. And when you do that, you can send messages for free to people in the group, only one at a time. But it's great for finding those people. And you can also look on people's profiles at the very bottom, see what groups they're in, join a group, and you can send them a message for free through the groups, even if they don't accept your invitation to connect.
okay,
So, yeah, so groups are a great way to meet the consumers, I'd say.
okay. Now, d- these profiles. So going kind of back to the scoring high,
Okay.
because I know like a lot of activity. People will try to do a lot of activity, a lot of like kind of spammy messages, and really just and not really necessarily thinking about like attraction marketing,
Right.
and it seems like there's a lot of pushing on LinkedIn. So what do I need to do to make my profile more attractive, and so that it'll rank higher, but also
Okay.
like more attractive to draw in the right kind of clients?
Okay. So there's different parts of your profile. So up at the top, there's the headline. It has 220 characters in it. A lot of times people will just put business coach or strategic business coach, but they don't know that you could continue on and you could say, I work with entrepreneurs who are in this sweet spot and I do this kind of thing. So you're telling your story right from the headline. Then there's this summary, or it's called about summary. You have 2,600 characters where you could tell your whole story in that and put your contact information, make it easy for people to contact you. And then in your experience and everything. So if you think about it, when you go and visit somebody's profile, it's like, what does the headline say? What does that summary say? And it's like, are they the right person to talk to or not? And so what your profile should be is, am I the right person for these people to contact? And have I made it easy for them to find my website, to call me, or to email me, all on your profile?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in that the title block, is that the one like where I would put strategic business coach? What was that called? The or
Well, there's a
description?
headline. There's a headline
Is
up
it
at the
headline?
top,
Headline,
and
right?
then
Yeah.
there's job titles. So down
Okay.
below in your experience, you only have 100 characters in those, but you
Mm,
want to make the most of those as well. So like I've worked with like a business coach, and I may say business coach specializing in executives, senior leaders, and whatever in the avionics and dynamics industries or whatever. So I'm very specific so that they can find that. So better to
okay.
be specific than too vague.
Okay. Now, what about using like in your headline?
Uh-huh.
Should you be using emojis or special symbols or anything like that?
You
Or
can, and so people sometimes wonder how to do that. All you got to do is type into the search engine LinkedIn emojis. You also can make bold type. If you type in LinkedIn bold type, and then you can just copy what you want to say. So I would say you can use emojis, you can use bold type. I use it sparingly, enough to get people to go, I wonder how she did that, but not so much as for them to be like, what the heck is wrong with this person?
right. So yeah, sometimes people can overdo it with the
Yeah.
emojis, and then it
Mhm.
starts to kind of look like more of a cartoon than
Yeah.
than a
But for like
professional
bullet
profile.
points or something, you could have like a stronger looking bullet because you go find an emoji that looks like a stronger bullet or a triangle or something like that.
Okay. So you want to get that headline. You want it to be more specific. Do we need to make sure that those like special keywords are
I
in
would,
there?
if you can. So like a lot of times, like for job seekers, I may put something like CEO, CFO with extensive experience in manufacturing and this, that, and the other thing. So I put and then sometimes I'll list like their industries that they specialize in, because I've helped a lot of recruiters find people. And it's like, if you buried the fact that you have worked in civil engineering, and they are looking for somebody with civil engineering experience, that's not doing you any good. So you want to you be really clear what you're strong at in your headline.
Okay, so you want to be really strong with that headline, and that's important for that first step. Now, when you're getting into all of the, your title and your job descriptions, a lot of people like to just kind of like put their whole life story in those job descriptions, or I see some people where it's just like the title of that position, like account executive, and then the amount of time, and then there's pretty much nothing else.
Nothing else.
So,
and that, I would say, is the number one mistake that people make, is they just put account executive and they don't do anything. And it's like, wait a minute, you're account executive, you're in sales. You want to put words in. So don't just put account executive, put account executive and what products you're selling or who you work with or the industries you serve. Put that in as much as you possibly can. And a lot of times people will go, well, but I could sell something else. And I'm like, but you'd score higher and get more opportunities in the same kind of job you want than to be vague. Vague doesn't work. So be clear. And definitely put in the duties that you do, because if you think about it, like as an account executive, most jobs have the same kind of duties. So you want to get all of those kinds of things, sell to the pharmaceutical industry and had 250% increase in sales by doing this. So you want to get dollar amounts and percentages, so those kind of things in there, and very clear info about what you do and what you sell.
So really, really clear info. You really want to get into those details. Is there such thing as too much detail?
I don't think so, because if you think about it, they're finding you so the computer's finding you first. So you've got to impress the computer or the algorithm before eyeballs will ever see you. And so that's where I would get clarity. Now, if you worked in a career decades ago that has nothing to do with what you do now, it's okay to leave some of that off, but I think it's much more important to get the keywords in than to be too brief. People are like, oh, you did a great job on my profile, but I deleted all of this. I thought it looked too busy. And I'm like, you just wrecked all the reasons you were scoring high. And it's like, yeah, don't do that.
Oh my gosh. I bet, that probably just makes you just go crazy. Like, oh, I just did all that. You just destroyed it.
Yeah, you just destroyed it. It's like, and so the other thing I would do is in that summary. So for example, I have a client that's a heating control, whatever. I don't know what heating control is, but like a Watlow or whatever. But she's a distributor company. And so I listed all of the brands that she sells. I list all of the products in that all of the services they offer in her summary, so that if somebody is looking for a Watlow heating whatever, they find her possibly even before they find Watlow, so that they can buy from her rather than directly. So so get your brands, get your services, get your products, list all of that.
Okay. So there's no such thing as too much. Now, could you have too much of non-relevant content that could take away from your score?
Definitely. Yeah, be focused, but be focused, and you can be very detailed in your focus area. That I think is best. And there also is options in LinkedIn to feature videos, PowerPoint presentations, product pictures, all sorts of things like that. Up at the above, and there's some sections down below where you can add all of those things. So like I work with one guy, every time he does a product for a client, he features that product in his featured section. So if I was to hire somebody that provides the kind of products he does, I would always go with him, because he's proven it over and over with those images.
Okay. So the proof is in the visuals a lot of
times.
Exactly.
Right? Well, visuals attract people. So definitely.
Yeah. Well, I often say seeing is believing, right?
Exactly.
So use a lot of words, and sometimes it can be confusing. Yeah. I did. I think it's trademarked. I think I trademarked. No, probably not me though. It might be trademarked, but it wasn't me. No. Okay, so like if we were to kind of give people just kind of a little bit of a checklist of just a place to start, what's like the top 5 to 10 things that they can do?
Okay, and I'm going to speak to this from somebody that's a business owner or an entrepreneur or whatever. In your headline, I would update your headline to talk about what you do or what you sell to your clients or your prospects. It would pump up your summary. If they haven't added a summary yet, they can go to add profile section and add an about summary. And I would put in what they sell in there very specifically. I sell these kind of products, this kind of brand, these kind of services. And then you could also put in, here's the type of companies that I sell to, and you get very thorough on that. And then I would pump up your experience and your skills lists so that you start scoring for what you do, and not just the job titles, but put in the details.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. All right. So how do you help people with this? I mean, because
Okay.
there's kind of the consultative and whatnot, and then I know you also do some speaking and what. So what are some ways that you help people with this?
Okay, so I help companies by either virtually or in person, depending on where they are. I do anything from a lunch and learn to multi-day sessions where I train all of their employees or select departments or whatever on how to maximize their profile, how to strengthen their company page or create the company page, how to follow their companies, follow the people they want to prospect with, and do all of those things. So I do all of that, the training. I also do individual training with people virtually and in person, mostly virtual now after the pandemic, and I go through the whole thing of teaching them. And it's like a training, but it's also a review. We go through your profile together and we say, okay, let's look at your headline. Now let's change that. Now let's look at your summary and let's look at this. And so by the end of the conversation, they fixed half of it together with me, and then they go off and they do people's profiles. They fix up the rest of the stuff that they haven't gotten done yet. And then I also can do people's profiles a lot,
Oh,
I
so
can't go into
you
too
can go
much
in there and do it.
detail. I can go
Yeah.
into
Okay.
detail how I do that because it's between them and me, and we don't tell LinkedIn.
Right. Right. Shh, shh, shh. Okay. All right. All right.
I don't work for LinkedIn, but
So if you're
yeah,
listening now, don't tell LinkedIn.
don't tell LinkedIn.
Um,
Exactly. Please don't. Yeah, I
So
mean, for the
let's
most part, I'll say I do coaching and training and working with people individually. So,
wonderful, wonderful. So
yeah.
you've got a very specific niche and
hmm
a very specific a very specific skill set, if you will.
hmm
And so if there's somebody out there who's got another specific skill set, maybe they're really good with Instagram, or maybe really good with TikTok. What kind of advice would you give them on how to turn that into like a full-time career?
For doing social media
Well,
or
like that very specific niche coaching and training.
oh, okay. Well, yeah, and I think just like with my background, it started small. Some days it still feels really small, but I love working with individuals and people. So I think figure out what part you really like to play. Do a lot of public speaking, and doing training with things, and that's kind of how it started with me. I started doing a blog. From that, somebody asked me to come speak, and then they're like, well, what's your speaking fee? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you want to pay me? And then it just kind of grew from there. And then you start, I'll tell you, I'll say 100% of my business either comes through referrals from people who've done me before, repeat business, or because I've spoken to a group and then they've hired me after they kind of realize what all I could do to help them.
Oh, yeah, I think that's so key. And
Yeah,
the especially just going out and speaking and being able to it sets you apart. It sets you up as a professional,
right.
sought after professional. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, most people just their LinkedIn just lays there, and they're like, "Well, I keep hearing it's supposed to do so much for me, and it's just laying there dead." And it's like, well, so just get in there, fill out those boxes, do things. But a lot of times people need that one-on-one guidance to know exactly what to change for them. So that's
right.
what I do.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're gonna go ahead and close up here now, and it's been awesome having you on here. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
The best way is my email, which is Kathy@wiseru.com, and maybe you can share that with them or something on the screen. But Kathy with KATHY @wiseru.com. That's WISER, the letter U.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm the Kathy Bernard in St. Louis, Missouri. So,
All right. Thank you so much.
Find. All right. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you so much, Kathy.
Okay.
And thank you all for listening. We'll see you back again here soon. Of positive impact. Please follow Time for Success on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube for more helpful strategies and tools for creating the business and life